So as the title says, the chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security said 90% of the U.S. population could die if some major event hit the power grid. Today we're going to talk about what can keep you fed, warm, safe, and alive should something like that happen. All right, folks, welcome back. Now, I hate doing clickbait, scary type videos, but I actually read the articles. There's two articles linked below that most of the information for this video came from, and I was like, whoa, okay, so this is actually really happening. Kind of shocking to see, and it got me thinking, what would you need to handle a winter power outage? A short, maybe a day, couple hours, 8 hours, whatever, type of outage where you're in the middle of winter and the weather has knocked out the power and you're kind of stuck there. So I started thinking about it, and then I thought, well, how about a massive cyber attack on the grid? So in the opening, I said something about the Homeland Security chairman. The chairman for the U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs stated that 9 out of 10 people in the U.S. could die if the grid were taken out via an EMP or a geomagnetic disturbance. Now, basically what we're talking about here would be some kind of, of course, a nuclear detonation in high altitude that would cause an EMP. But even more scary is just a natural disaster, some kind of Carrington event or some kind of geomagnetic disturbance from the sun that would knock out the power grid. And, let's face it, our grid is kind of at escalated risk these days. It's faltering due to imminent major storms and prolonged cold snaps, and basically it's not as reliable as it used to be. The 2023-2024 Winter Reliability Assessment was published November 8th, and it said a sweeping portion of the country that extends from Texas to the Canadian border is not adequately equipped for tough winter conditions. The report indicated also that the power grid continues to fray and suffer from underinvestment, despite promises from our lovely politicians and regulators to shore it up following deadly blackouts in past years. So now is a really good idea, a good time to start thinking about elevating your level of preparedness to take the steps you might need if you don't have power this winter, whether it be a day or a couple of weeks or however long it might be. What you see in front of you on the counter here is just kind of a compilation of random stuff that is helpful. Some of it's just kind of representations. Of course, I'd want a bigger power generator than that. That's a smaller one, but it fit on the table. So I'm just going to give you some ideas. We're going to go over some things that might help you should the power go out and how you would take care of it. So let's start with that. So the first thing I want to talk about is water, because we all know water is life. It's very important. And water can be obtained now while times are good, and it's almost free. You still pay your water bill for it. But you can fill up containers. You can do whatever you're going to do. In the back, I have an empty 5-gallon container back there. I'm actually going to fill that up later. But it's just an important thing to stock. You're going to need it for cooking. You're going to need it for bathing. You're going to need it for a lot of different things. And we'll get into bathing and stuff if you don't have enough room to store a ton of water. I happen to use 55-gallon drums, as well as a bunch of those little 5-gallon ones. I have all sorts of different types of water storage. I have those click containers that click together. I got water hidden everywhere in this house because I'm in the desert, and should something bad go down, I want to be able to, have water, And we could lose water here for a number of stupid reasons for a couple days. Filtration systems could crash. We lose power out here sometimes. Who knows? It could be anything. So, water filtration systems are important as well. Berkey-style filters. I have an Aqua Rain filter actually in my, the gravity filters, the big stainless steel gravity filters. They work well. I know Berkey's recently had some issues where their filters, and they're getting sued. And I didn't get into the whole detail of that. But I know that they do work well, and you can always get more wicks, which are the filters that are inside of them. They're very good. Now, portable filters. Some of you haven't thought about that yet. This is the Grail filter here. This is a very simple filter. It's basically a press. You're going to fill it up with water, pull this out, and then fill this up with water. Pull this out and then just push it down and press the water in there to filter it. We have the Seychelles water filter over here. This one's actually kind of unique, and I just dropped the cap for that. This one's actually kind of unique because this can filter out radiological material in here, okay? And there are the tests that they ran on it. Okay, so this can filter out radiological material, basically anything you need to do to get pure water after a disaster, but it can also filter out your regular stuff too. You can go down to Walmart and spend $26, buy yourself a squeeze filtration system. This one isn't one of those. This happens to be from, Bowlet. It's a water filter, life straw type thing. There's a little protective cap on the end here. But you take that off, you put a straw in here, and you put it in the water, or you could screw on a bag. Have you thought about water purification tablets? Okay, Aqua Tabs, very, very handy. I've done entire videos on these in the past. So we've done one where we tested the Aqua Tab and then the cleanup of the Aqua Tab after, and they were pretty darn good. Now, if you can't have a ton of water storage, right, maybe due to constraints of where you live, maybe your landlord isn't going to let you roll 55-gallon buckets up to the third floor of your apartment, you know, you may want to think about baby wipes for sanitation and cleaning yourself up. You can still get away with doing a bunch of these. Don't get me wrong. These 5-gallon buckets, maybe even 1-gallon buckets, maybe even 1-liter soda bottles that you've rinsed out well. But definitely store water. Next up is going to be how to cook. How are you going to cook? You know, most of us have electric stoves these days. There's very few people with propane or gas anymore. Kind of a shame because I really miss a gas stove. I think the last place I lived in that had a gas stove was back in New York, and I really miss a gas stove. But think about how you're going to do that. You know, you got stoves. You got stoves you can make yourselves, like these little alcohol stoves. This one here. You know, I mean, that costs almost nothing, a couple of cans, and you can make one. You got butane, propane. You guys have seen me generate a ton of content on stoves in general. Also, too important, adapters. Let's say your isobutane stove is doing great, but you're out of isobutane. How are you going to power it? Well, you get adapters. And, you know, this is funny. I did a video on adapters, God, years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Every single week, I see 5 or 6 people buying these adapters off of my Amazon store, and I'm really glad to see it because this gives you a way to power your stoves with something else. So if my isobutane stove is down and I don't have any more isobutane, I can screw this in here, stick this on there, and guess what? I got a whole pound of propane to use. And will it work? Yeah, works perfectly. I tested it. Also, too, you notice the butane fuel? Here's an adapter for the same thing with the butane fuel. This will snap on there, lock into place, and you screw your isobutane stove on top there. Is it ideal? No, it's not perfect, but it'll work, and it'll keep your food heated up. So that's something to think about as well, okay? Definitely want to do that when all else fails. Do you have a wood stove? When you're totally out of all your fuel, do you have a wood stove, a small little portable one that maybe you can go out and grill on? A little tiny small portable stove like that, chop up some sticks, make yourself a little wood stove. Can you start a fire? Do you know how to do it? Have you ever started a fire in a controlled environment and see if you can actually do it? So let's move on to the next thing, which is going to be so usually when these kind of disasters happen, they happen when it's cold. It can happen when it's hot too. And out here in the desert, we have a whole other section on that. But we're more talking about winter storms and winter power reliability. So one of the things that I like is a good heater. This one is small. That's why it's out here. Of course, I have my Mr. Buddy heater. I have a couple more similar to this one, similar to that one. But this one runs on the little butane fuel canisters, the little, cans. But I actually used it this morning to heat up my work area. That's why it's out here. It's easy to grab. But, have a way to keep yourself warm. Now, if you do have one of the things similar to this, or even a Buddy heater, the little Mr. Buddy's indoor safe heater, make sure you're safe with it. Make sure you have adequate ventilation. I know it doesn't seem kind of sensical to open your door a crack when you're using a heater to heat up an area, but you don't want the carbon monoxide to build up in your home. Now, my home, I have very high ceilings, good ventilation, had the back door open a little bit, just in case anything was building up. I have carbon monoxide alarms throughout my house, so I knew I was okay. Now, another thing to consider when you're using these is the heat mostly goes up. So if you're a good 5 feet away, you're not going to feel that heat. So maybe you want to get a Peltier device. This is this here, okay? And what this does, you'll notice the sensor on the bottom, is it uses the two contrasting hot and cold plates in the middle there to make the fan spin. You need no batteries with this. You simply just set this on top, let it heat up, and it will start spinning. That pushes that hot air on you instead of it being wasted going straight up in the air. So definitely heat is an important thing. The next thing we're going to talk about is lighting, and I'm going to swing you over that way. Now, I apologize for having all the propane and stuff in front of them, but you have really 3 options. You can go with the Coleman gas and the mantle kind of lantern. Not very safe for indoors. Again, it can get knocked over, it can spill. However, if you're used to using them and you have adequate ventilation, go for it. Good old oil lamps. These things have been safe for years. You fill them up with oil, you light them up, they're good to go. My favorite and go-to type thing are the LEDs, and I got this one back here. I'll pull it out in front for you. This guy right here. There's tons of similar type things. You can even see the little red light on there because it's got a solar panel on top. So actually the studio lights are charging it up. This also can charge your cell phone on the bottom there. It's got a plug. And lets off quite a bit of light. Pretty darn bright. Another option is LED lighting. Let me get these back here. Do a big reach, not to bump into my camera. You've seen me demo these things. You plug them into a power station or a power bank, and you've got yourself a good 8 hours of light with these. These take hardly any power. I think they're 24 or 30 watts, and these are very, very bright. So lighting is very important at night, and something like this is awesome because you can use this inside during the night, and once daytime comes, you just stick it outside and let it charge up. Again, you may not have a plug to charge these things up. Now, we'll get into power stations in a second, but it's very important to have something like this because you'll be able to charge it up without doing anything. You just put it outside, put it in a window, whatever, and you can charge it up and use it for nighttime. Let's talk about power stations and communications really quick. Now, again, I have this smaller power station out here. If you have a lot to run, of course, I'd suggest a larger one. It just fit here. That's why it's here. This is the smaller one from Blue Eddy, and it actually is a very nice power station. And again, depending on your power needs, hey, you may only need 300 watts. But a power station is really important. You can build your own. I've done a video building my own twice now, a while back, a couple years ago. And you can put together your own for pennies on the dollar, and it still will charge up what you need. And it's very easy to do. Even though it sounds complicated, it's super easy. But having a reliable power source, some kind of backup power is very important. It's also important, because we're talking about a grid down situation here, to have a way to charge that back up. We're not going to be able to plug it into the wall. So obviously you're going to need a solar panel with it. If you build your own power station, you can get a solar panel fairly inexpensively. When I first started my adventures with solar and learning about it and all, like a 100-watt solar panel was like $300. All right. I still have the 100-watt one that I bought in a group buy, and I actually got a good deal on it because it was $109. But they were normally $303. But a website that I belong to bought a bunch of them, and we all kind of chipped in and did a group buy. So definitely need a solar panel in that. You're going to need this possibly for lighting, for charging your cell phone if the cell phone networks are still up. A lot of people figure they'll go on social media with their cell phone and post and get the family together and rally them all together and say, hey, you guys okay? That might work for a little while because, again, the federal government mandated that cell towers have a certain amount of backup time. I believe it's 8 hours now. But, again, if it's a nationwide EMP event or grid down event, social media may be gone too. So you want to start thinking about communications, and that's where this stuff comes in. Let me just turn the camera a tiny little bit. I hate turning it while it's moving. But, you got a radio here. This is a GMRS radio. GMRS is very simple. You go online, pay $35, you get a call sign. It's kind of, in a way, I know hams will rip me for this, but it's similar to ham radio. You're using repeaters, you're using offsets and tones and stuff, but it isn't ham radio. Ham radio is another thing you might want to look into if you're willing to do the time, put the effort in, study, and take the test. And then you get a lot more frequencies and a lot more power. But GMRS is a good option for your immediate family. And remember that if you're relying on one repeater in your city to contact everybody on, that may be very busy at the time with people taking care of their own business. So, set all that up ahead of time. Another option, let me move this out of the way for you, is an AM/FM radio, a shortwave radio. This little guy here from Ratty is pretty awesome. It does AM/FM shortwave. It can charge your phones. It does everything. It's got a light on it. It's a neat little kind of retro-looking thing, but it actually works very, very well. We've done a review on this. You have the Eton little portable AM/FM weather band here with shortwave. This is probably a better shortwave radio than the little guy, all in all. But, again, shortwave lets you get the information away from your local area, okay? That's why I like shortwave. Also, with some shortwave radios, if they pick up upper sideband and lower sideband, you can listen to hams, and you can listen to ham traffic, and that gives you a lot of info. Another valuable tool that I don't have pictured out here is a police scanner. If your local agency still uses unencrypted traffic, whether it's digital or analog, get a police scanner. Listening to what's going on in your area gives you a major heads up. Our local sheriff's department here uses P25. It's a digital scanner. It is phase 1 unencrypted, so we can listen to it. They recently did take it off of the Broadcastify app because they found criminals listening to it, trying to get a heads up on what they were doing. But very handy, a neat little thing, and definitely a good way to get yourself nice and safe and know what's going on around you, okay? Now, the next thing up, you're going to notice I got some cash here, okay? Cash, very important, okay? Cash is very important. Try to keep a couple weeks of cash on hand. If you don't have a lot of extra money and you can't do that, I'm going to give you a little trick that I did when I was just starting out doing this prepping stuff and I didn't have a lot of money. I refused to spend $1 bills. If I went somewhere and broke a 20 and I got 5 ones back, they went into my right pocket. When I got home, I put them in an envelope. Now, that may seem for some of you like, oh, I can't afford that. I live paycheck to paycheck and every dollar counts. But maybe you can take 2 of them and put it in your other pocket. Save your change, roll your change, take it to the bank. Don't use the coin machines because they're just going to rip you off 10% of what you saved. Save your change and put it in the bank, and that way you'll be able to get some dollar bills back. If you are making enough money, set aside a certain amount of money every week that you put away in your stash. Having cash is handy because when the power goes out, that may be all the thing you have. That may be everything. I try to do about 3 weeks of shopping trips with my cash, so I kind of run an estimate of what I spend every week shopping and try to put that away, and that kind of works well for me because if power's out, I know I could open up a safe, grab some cash, buy whatever I need. Now, you don't want to go running at the last minute to go out and buy everything that you need with cash, so you want to do that ahead of time. All right, quickly, another thing we got to talk about is food. Very simple thing, okay? Food. I have a bunch of options. You guys have seen me review food now for years. I got my Thrive Life freeze-dried. Okay, I love this stuff because it's individual ingredients. Again, freeze-dried wholesalers, individual ingredients. You're not only eating what Mountain House puts in a bag for you as a meal. You can choose what you want with it. Very handy to be able to do that. If you're not necessarily one who likes to cook a lot, you can buy the Mountain House. You can go with the, My Patriot Supply at my site, preparewithiridium.com, and you will have entrees, freeze-dried entrees. Thrive has started to put out some freeze-dried entrees. So you can get the freeze-dried entrees at Thrive Life. I believe they're for 2 or 3 people, I forget. And you can get that too, so that's very handy. If price-wise, all of that is out of reach for you, simply go to the store and buy some extra food. Buy canned goods, buy canned meats. You got Spams, you got all the beef and all that other stuff, canned chicken. You can buy a little bit at a time. Again, you can set aside a budget. $10 a week, $20 a week, every week you're buying that and putting it away somewhere as your emergency food supply. You definitely don't want to be running out there at the last minute buying stuff during an event. One of the things that brought that to mind so clearly for me, when I was watching footage of the LA riots, and they were out on the street, the reporters were out on the street interviewing people, and this poor older lady didn't know the LA riots were going on. She went down to her local drugstore to pick up her prescription, and her drugstore was in flames, and they're interviewing her, and she's just sitting there crying. She's like, what are they doing? I need to get my medication. And don't be one of those people that at the last minute runs out and tries to get stuff. And that's where a first aid kit and your important medications, I have one hiding back here, a first aid kit and your important medications that you take every day, very important to get ahead of time. So when the power's out, those stores may just roll up their windows and close. They may roll up their doors and goodbye, we're done. So make sure you have that ahead of time. So I have a few more things we want to talk about that aren't out here, and we'll finish up the video. So if you made it this far, you might be thinking, all right, well, I got a lot to shop for, and you really don't. If you budget it and get one thing a week, like if I say, all right, I want to buy an isobutane stove this week, and you find one on Amazon, and it's affordable. Next week, all right, I want to buy a light, and I want to put away $20 in my cash stash. Okay. A little bit at a time. Yes, this is approaching time where it's dangerous and it could happen, but if you have 5 or 6 of those things and some food, guess what? You're ahead of the game already. You don't have to be as well prepped as every prepper channel shows you every day. You can have just a little bit, and it'll help you get through till maybe you can get more in the future. So definitely a good start. All right, let's talk quickly about maps. Your GPS systems may not be reliable. They may not be working. If it's a major EMP event, those satellites may be down. Learn to get maps, learn to read maps, know what they do, know how to work them. I was lucky, being a little kid in the 70s, my parents used maps. So I know how they work. I kind of know how to do it. And it's a very handy thing, and it's a skill to learn. Okay, so learn some navigation without GPS. All right. Another thing, do you have your documents in order? Your certificates, your licenses, hard copies of birth certificates, maybe a secure encrypted version of all this stuff on a thumb drive too, but mainly hard copies in a safe location where they won't get wet, and where if you have to bug out, you can grab them and go. Okay, I have envelopes in my safe with all of my personal information. It's very important, ready to go at a moment's notice. Have that ready too, okay? And putting it on a thumb drive can't hurt. So with what we're seeing kicking off in the world, the possibility of world wars, polarization in our own country, large-scale protests on our street, and in the middle of all that, an election season coming up, now's the time to start thinking about these things, especially with winter coming up, and what we're hearing from our own government saying, we're not up to the task of a possible EMP or bad winter storm. So this is just some ideas. If you have some more ideas, feel free to add them below. Don't forget to check all our links below as well. We have our Amazon affiliate store. Again, and just click that link and shop as you normally would and help support the channel. Doesn't cost anything to do. Don't forget our freeze-dried wholesalers. I love letting you guys know about this stuff because it's really good food, and my link saves you 15%. So if you want to shop on there and you click that link and you go there, add the stuff to your cart you want, check out, and you'll see my discount at the end. No codes, nothing to worry about, nothing to use like that. Of course, our My Patriot Supply, preparewithiridium.com. Got awesome deals going on there this month, 3-month kits with money off. You definitely want to get that if you want to get started and you have some money to get started. And of course, our Thrive Life freeze-dried food store. I'm going to be demoing a couple of the Thrive Life individual meals, so I want you guys to check that out as well. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I am feeling a little bit better today. Still kind of congested in my chest, but I feel a whole lot better. So thanks for joining me. Stay safe and stay prepared.